Duncan Fremlin here from the band Whiskey Jack. A few months ago, I spent some time with the legendary Neil Rosenberg, scholar, historian, author, banjo player. I had to break it down into two parts. We talked about a lot of things, and this is part two. You're watching Banjo Dunk. It's a YouTube channel. Please subscribe. There are other interviews here, and there's more coming. Hope you enjoy this one. Who do you enjoy today? Who's you put on? Do you listen? You listen to SiriusXM sometimes. So is there a? I mean, there's so many, Neil, that are amazing, just amazing.
You know, I have to confess, I don't listen to bluegrass, except when I want to go and I'm writing something, or I want to go and check out a tune or something like that. And most of the time I listen to Philip Glass and French organ music. I don't really listen to contemporary bluegrass very much.
It's really become a world instrument, hasn't it? In a way that we never thought possible back in the 70s, even where some of the Germany, Switzerland, the Kruger brothers, Australians, they're all coming to the table with a whole different approach to this instrument and redefining it in many ways. It's really quite wonderful, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
You're a songwriter too, aren't you? Have you recorded many of your banjo songs, or?
Yeah, I sent you some that I've recorded. That one, I realized when I sent them to you, I think I didn't put the titles on them. The first one I sent, Queenstown, that's a tune that's been used as a theme song on a bluegrass program out in Vancouver. So it's great. I get royalties from it. I've been getting royalties from it for, many years. I've composed many tunes and I enjoy them. One thing I find with tunes is that it gives you a way of developing your own way of approaching keys, tempos, chord changes, the whole works. If you've got a way of playing something that is your way because you've worked it out in a tune, and that just makes things a little more comfortable.
Have you gotten away from? I was talking to Dennis LePage many months ago about all this, and he was talking about just being drawn to the D position lately. I get that, that you've not exhausted the G position, but all of a sudden you tune the fifth string up a couple of frets and you play out a D, and all of a sudden, man, there's a whole different sound. You have a lot of open strings. You can still do your forward rolls and whatnot. So have you, is there a position, you a C, D, G position guy?
Or the D position. I first was introduced to that back in 1963 by Bill Keith. And he said, he pointed to Alan Shelton. Who's another banjo player.
Love Alan Shelton.
Hanging around Alan Shelton.
I love Eddie too.
Yeah. Well, Eddie, I knew that. Well, these are guys that I knew, and
Don Stover. You probably knew Don Stover.
I never knew him, but I loved his music.
Oh, great.
It's really, really great. Yeah. No. So I've been playing the open D with the fifth string up an A ever since then. That's how I worked out Soldier's Joy. It's great for playing along with fiddlers. And the accordion player, I was telling you about Art Stoyles. Art played a 3-row button accordion, and these you can get them in various keys, but he had a 3-row. It was D, A, and G. So the middle row was D, and then the one of them was A and the other one was G. So D was an awful lot of the tunes we play are in D, and so I've got very comfortable in playing that tuning, and I do it a lot.
I'm very excited to talk about this next thing with you because you and I we emailed a little bit about the drop tuning, the John Hartford tuning down. So I have a Bruce. Do you know who Bruce Dowd is?
Oh yeah, I think he was in Ottawa.
No, well, he was originally in Ottawa. He's been in Toronto for decades. He's a luthier, builds banjos, or used to build banjos, and he's famous for the Ruby. Correct. That's right. Yeah. He's a legend. He's a legend around here, Neil. He's So
I met him years ago.
Yeah. So years ago, I walked into 12th fret, and as I'm wont to do, if you're ever in Toronto, you have to go into the banjo room at the 12th fret and just sit there and feel the vibe. It's amazing. It's this little room full of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of the best banjos you can imagine. So I walk in there, and Grant MacNeill, a good old Nova Scotia boy, he's the owner, and he said, I just got this Ruby banjo in. It just came in this morning, and it's a little unusual. It has a wooden tone ring. I picked it up, and first of all, it was light, Neil. It was lovely to hold. So I bought it. Grant set it up for me, and so I have taken the strings, the John Hartford gauges, put them on this banjo and tuned it down to E. Oh, and
Gumtree Canoe.
Now I want to ask you. You had mentioned something because you had talked to Hartford about this, and I think you had told me there was something about a felt. What was that?
Yeah, he showed me his banjo. That's right. He not only did he have it tuned that way, and I'm not sure whether that was when he got that. He had a Deering banjo. It was a John Hartford model, and with the wooden tone ring. I can't really remember whether he had that then or not, but he definitely had a piece of felt on the resonator inside to dampen the tone,
hold it. On the head itself?
Not on the head, no, on the inside of the resonator.
Okay.
On the bottom of the on the inside of the resonator there, yeah. And I can't. He had an explanation and a logic for all this, which I no longer remember. But I set up this banjo. It was a Gold Star. It was Gold Star.
100. Yeah, 1982 Gold Star. You said in your interview.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I play every day. It's right here.
Yeah, it was a nice banjo. I eventually sold it. Yeah,
I have a Steve Huber tone ring in it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one banjo that's got a Huber tone ring. It's an Osborne Chief, one of the very first Osborne Chiefs. It's a nice banjo.
The Gold Star was really making big noise in the industry, and it was quite an affordable banjo compared to the Gibson. And I continue to play that banjo today, and all these years later. The other banjo I know during my research with you that you owned, one of my very first banjo. It wasn't my first one, but one was an RB250 bow tie that Eric Nagler. Do you know who Eric Nagler is? The children's performer. So again, a great banjo player. I must add him to this list actually.
Yeah, he's still New York.
Yeah, he lives north of Toronto here, but he's born and raised in New York, I believe. Part of the Washington Square crowd, Neil. You know the ones, the Bob Dylans and the.
He wrote an article. I think it was in Doug Benson had a little newsletter he used to publish. It was the first Canadian bluegrass newsletter, and he had a couple part piece by Eric Nagler talking about those days. It was very good. So I remember reading that.
Eric used to be involved with the Mill Wheel, which was a great music store back in the 70s and 80s, right in downtown Toronto. So because of him, the store had, it had Deerings, or no, it didn't have Deerings. It had Stellings. It just had a great banjo selection. So he ended up buying a Stelling, and so he wanted to sell his bow tie. So I bought the bow tie, and I played that on the Hunter show. I think many of those shows I played on the bow tie, and then
I knew nothing about serial numbers back then, and still don't know a lot. But I was showing it to Dave. David Talbot.
Sure, Nashville.
Dave's mother is from Newfoundland. He visited here a few years ago, and he was looking at we had a banjo seminar, and he took the resonator off and looked at it. He said, "Look at that serial number." He said, "I think Curtis McPeake has another number. It was 8194-4." He said, I think that Curtis has -3. So a year later or so, I was in Nashville, and we went out to see Curtis McPeake, and he had the next banjo in line. And that one, it was a plectrum banjo with an unusual hearts and flowers design that I'd never seen before, but it was, whatever they made at that point in time. And whoever had the banjo, the plectrum, they just spliced on a 5th string.
Was that the first time you had met Curtis?
Yeah.
And he was kind of your generation, maybe older than you, probably.
A little bit older than me, but he played with Bill in 1960.
Yeah, that's right.
And was associated with the Opry and stuff.
So Curtis liked a good chaw, Neil, or do you like a good chaw too?
No, I tried that when I was very young, and it didn't catch.
I went to see Curtis years ago. I was visiting David Talbot in Nashville, and I bought a Frank Neat banjo. Neat, right? And so David said, "Well, why don't you go over and get Curtis to set it up for you?" And I'd never met Curtis before, so I went over and spent a few hours with Curtis, and he set up my banjo, and he sat there the whole time, spitting in the metal thing beside the old school. Yeah. Do you read tablature? Do you write tablature? Do you are you a big tablature guy?
No. So
do you use one of these expensive thumb picks, the blue chip $50 thumb picks?
Yeah, I bought one a few years ago at the IBMA, but I could never make it work for me.
Yeah. Are you working on it? Is there a book you're working on right now, or you have a big project underway? What's going on in Neil Rosenberg's life?
Not working on a book. I wrote that autobiography, Bluegrass Generation. It was published in 2018. That's the last one that I've done. But I have been doing a column for this website. And so that's the project. It takes a lot of time and energy to write like that, and I don't have that kind of push anymore, unfortunately.
Tell me about your Grammy.
The Grammy. The Grammy was for my contribution to the Folkways reissue of the Anthology of American Folk Music. I wrote a little essay in there and so myself and about 10 other people got Grammys. And
so your era, those years when you start talking about the 60s, as someone, I'm 10 years your junior, so I remember the 60s, but not as an adult. It was obviously an incredibly exciting time. There's so much, everything was new. Bill Keith was creating this new style. Banjo makers were trying different things. It was just such an exciting time.
Yeah.
And also, you seen when I mentioned Alan Shelton and Eddie Shelton and Don Stover and all of these, what I consider to be the most influential people in my career.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't help but think of, did you ever get to meet Mel Bay?
No, I heard about Mel Bay, and various people I knew worked with him, but no, I never did.
Again, you and I could talk for hours.
I'll mention one more person who's a friend is Alan Munde. I met Alan at Bean Blossom, and then years later he had me come out and give a lecture when he was teaching out there at Levelland. So I hung out with Alan a lot, in the last 10 years.
Right.
And so
I have recently had an exchange, in fact, last night with David Jack, who is the former banjo player with the Dixie Flyers. And I don't know if he ever met Bert and Kenny from the Flyers. You must have met them, no? Anyway, they were friends of Alan's, and I remember years and years ago sitting around with Bert and Kenny as they told Alan Munde stories, and famous for his sense of humor, if I recall.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, Neil, man, like I said, you and I could talk forever. I'm sure I'll think of other things. Being able to. I don't get to hang around other banjo players. This is my way of stealing ideas from you and learning how you became the banjo player that you are. And so it's I just appreciate your time, and maybe someday I'm on tour with my Stomp and Tom show down east in April and May, but we're not going to the Rock, unfortunately.
That's too bad.
I'd love to meet you in person and play for those folks over there, but not this time, maybe some other time. But I thank you very, very much, sir.
Well, you're welcome, and I hope this turns out to be a good show, good program for you. We'll see.
Oh yeah, no, it's great, very good.
Okay.